Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our daily show here out of Batdorf from Bronson on the West Coast. But we're calling everywhere these days. You know that we've been calling to friends down in Bolivia. We've called our friends in Guatemala as well, and now we're talking to one of our friends, Janice Nadworthy, who works for Food4Farmers. She's the co-director there. We're going to be having a conversation with her and Bob today. And I'd like to introduce her now and Bob as well, and have everybody say hello. So what time is it where you are right now, Janice?
It's 12:02 p.m. in Vermont.
Okay, in Vermont. What a lovely place. Now I heard, and this is just a side conversation, that there might be a coffee to maple syrup exchange going on. Is that true?
It's in progress, right? As we speak.
Okay, all right. So,
Quote unquote.
can anybody be part of that, or is that just a very closed circle?
There was, I believe this resulted from a logo mug request. I asked Janice to use logo mug during this interview, and she told me she'd draw one on her cup. So we're going to make sure Janice gets some fresh Fat Dwarf coffee in a logo mug. And there's a rumor that perhaps some fresh maple syrup will come back our way in return.
Oh, okay. All right. This is sounding
Not,
good. All
not
right.
only maple syrup, but grade B maple syrup.
Good. Well, I think what we wanted to talk about today was a little bit of about the relationship that that Batdorf has with Food4Farmers, but also I want to let Bob guide a little bit of the conversation with Janice, really focusing on what Food4Farmers does and why it is that we like being engaged with them and working with them.
Yeah. So thanks, Josh. As I've been kind of stressing with many of these Wednesday, broadcasts that we've been doing, I like to just emphasize the relationships we've built with other people in the coffee industry over the years. Obviously, the producer focus is always a focus of mine. And however, it's not just producing partners. It's also other organizational partners that perhaps work at Origin, perhaps work here in the States. But Food4Farmers is one of those organizations that I've been kind of really sort of trying to foster with Batdorf. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity to introduce this to some of our customers if they had not heard about Food4Farmers already. Historically, like Janice reminded us, it's been about 2 years, a little over 2 years that we've been working with Food4Farmers. And we started with basically a tandem food or coffee promo. It was coffee that we purchased from a co-op in Mexico, the Sesmop co-op. Our customers might know this coffee is El Triunfo. It's a certified organic fair trade coffee in Mexico that we purchased that does have direct relationship with Food4Farmers. And we basically sold that coffee and just added a buck that would be a direct donation to Food4Farmers as a result of sales of that coffee. My goal, however, was to get some sort of ongoing contributions without there being kind of a coffee specific partner here. So I guess that now it's probably a good segue to let Janice talk about what that relationship with a specific producing group or what Food4Farmers actually does. So have at it, Janice. Enlighten us.
Well, we partner with coffee cooperatives and coffee growing organizations in Latin America. Ways typically have hundreds of members, small farming families growing coffee on an acre or two of land, producing really high quality, beautiful coffee from beautiful places. But their farms are so small, they simply can't support the families from coffee income alone. And even with premiums, it's just not enough to take care of their families. And so we work with them to help diversify their farms. So along businesses right in the community, and sell their food to their neighbors and communities so that everyone in their rural areas can access healthy food. Because the other reality is because people aren't talking about food, most food to these communities is trucked in weekly or less frequently, and it comes from other areas, other countries, including the US. So people are really consuming a lot of packaged, processed, fatty, sugary foods, with lots of health issues. Malnutrition is a big issue in America, but now it looks different. Now it looks like obesity, heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. So we're taking these farmers who are tremendous resources for coffee and are now making them important resources for their communities in terms of growing food for everyone, and also farming using climate smart practices to reduce chemicals, to improve soil and water nutrition, and to make their farms environmentally friendly and really deal with the effects of climate change. And I know you know this, Bob, they're on the front lines for sure, really endangering the coffee market. I think it was quoted that every 1 coffee area used to grow coffee. We're trying to work with coffee farmers and ranchers to help them become more self-sufficient, strengthen local food systems, provide opportunities for women and young people in their communities so that they won't have to migrate and look for work elsewhere. Um, and all of the things that now this pandemic is bringing up as being important, like local food systems, local communities, local economies. It's right in the center of our work.
Yeah. I know through conversations I've had with you, Janice, and it's always been something that I've talked about. And I know we don't necessarily, I mean, we agree, but we don't agree. You know, it's like trying to get coffee producers to not grow coffee, right? So we're having producers grow coffee, but at the same time, that diversification is very important. You know, one of the things that I'm always talking to our employees and customers, and as a small premium coffee roaster, we pay premium prices for our coffees. But you know, we're such a small kind of slice of the pie, and what I always try and explain to people is it's not what you can sell your top 10% or your top super premium coffees for. It's what do you do with the rest of your crop that might be not, you know, if you're talking SEA scores, you know, low 80s, something that's really not going to really command those super high prices. And when the coffee market's doing what it's doing, that's when producers really suffer. So it's kind of a great way to get producers to kind of get away from coffee, which I think is important. Not necessarily totally away from coffee, but to find other means of income and diversification. So maybe specifically, can you talk about what some of those diversified means are? I know you mentioned microcredit. I know you mentioned just kind of growing food sort of generically. There's also like honey projects that you guys have done. So maybe just hit on a couple of those.
Sure. And, you know, we're not talking about taking away from coffee, we're talking to adding to coffee. So I would say the vast majority of the farmers we work with continue to grow as much coffee, and they can take income from their other on-farm businesses to invest in their farms and improve the quality of their coffee. So we're not taking away from coffee, we're just saying this farm is a hub, it's a resource hub. There are lots of things that the family can do there in addition to coffee. And I just want to say one more thing, that there's a danger in monoculture. Even if they put all of their land into coffee, look what happens when there's monocropping, right? Coffee rust. Look what happens in their one species of honeybees here, colony collapse disorder. Look what's happening with this pandemic, right? When you plant one thing on a farm, you make that farm vulnerable to disease and pandemics of some sort or climate change. So what we're doing is by diversifying that farm and adding to coffee, growing below and above that coffee, so to speak, we're protecting and diversifying the farm, the land, the family, and the coffee itself. So we start out looking at the family and what the family needs if they're indigenous, seed saving, producing organic foods, but also producing value added products. So jams and juices and other things that they can sell. So they grow food, they start growing food for their families, but they're producing so well that their community needs food, they start up farmers markets. Or with one of our co op partners in Colombia, they're doing food exchanges where they don't always sell, but everybody will bring a different crop or recipe or different kinds of foods and they'll exchange and barter with their neighbors, including seeds. So taking that food and growing it into a farmer's market is what I'd say most everyone that we're working with on our home garden program is doing. They're also keeping chickens, eggs, small farm animals that they're selling those products as well locally to individuals and businesses. In addition to that, we have beekeepers, so um, producing honey, but also producing royal jelly and pollen and propolis and all of those bee products that in a lot of remote communities, people don't have access to doctors, so they use it for medicinal purposes and nutrition purposes. Pollen has a lot of protein in it, and so families will give their kids pollen, and it's very good and makes them grow big and strong. And it's used as a medicinal and nutritional product for communities. So help them develop these businesses, and many people will just sell locally. They'll keep some beehives, they'll sell some honey locally, they'll keep it for their families. Others will start to group their products and export internationally. So two of our partners, Sesmach in Mexico, which you've supported, and My Shiel, and also Acodiwe in Guatemala, they're all producing honey for export. So coming from their same farms, that same terroir, honey has a wonderful flavor profile, very varied depending on what's flowering. So that's a really lucrative product in this market as well. And then the third part of our work is along with using co-ops to reach out to farmers to help them develop businesses and healthier food. The co-ops are now leading the way to healthier communities through school garden programs. So we have several school gardens in Nicaragua and one in Colombia where they're serving hundreds of students and they're growing food there. Their parents are working with them. Their teachers are adding it to the curriculum. Kids are bringing food home to their families. They have healthy snacks, healthy lunches. So the co-ops are really working with us and local partners to help bring that healthy school nutrition as well to the larger community. So it's a combination of having healthy food accessible to all, lots of small businesses, and also helping add to coffee on small farms so that people can stay on their farms, earn a living, and not have to migrate off. So
I want to jump in really quick for a second, if I could, Janice. I was showing a few photos that you provided for us, and one of them was labeled as a beekeeping trainer, and it looked like he had some honeycomb that he was doing quality assurance test on. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe how that works with the trainers and how they interact with members of a cooperative, for example, like the one that we worked with?
Sure. So, the challenge is that a lot of NGOs will work with a cooperative, with an organization. Others will work with families at that household level. And we work at both levels. So we help the co-op develop the capacity to manage a food security program because their business is really selling coffee. This is completely new. So there has to be somebody at the cooperative whose job it is to really manage these programs and make sure things are going well. If there are problems, they're addressed, and to sustain that work locally. And what we do is we help develop the tools to monitor the programs, the curriculum for training, and the expertise at the co-op level so that this specialist like Domingo at My Shield can reach families and support them as they learn about beekeeping. We've also added another layer between the community, the coordinator, like Domingo, and the families keeping bees. We have community promoters now. And these are usually young people, children of coffee producers. They're teens to late 20s typically. A lot of them are young women. And what they do is They learn to support families, they visit families, they help them address problems, they bring that information back to the coordinator at the co op. So there's this whole hub of um, resource going out to families from the cooperative. And Domingo's expertise is beekeeping. He's a beekeeper, and we've helped him access more training and expertise. We work with an ecological college called Ecosur in Chiapas, Mexico, and they've been doing the training with Mighty Shield and with SESMATch for beekeeping because they have expertise there. But it's this whole support system so that cooperatives can really embed that knowledge locally so that, say there's a pandemic and we lose all of our funding and Food4Farmers can't support the community anymore, the cooperative and the families will have enough knowledge and experience so that they can continue on their own, because that's the gap, in development work in these kinds of programs. They're trained, people are trained, there's a grant, they are given the money, but then after a period of time, the money goes away. The NGO goes away. And what happens and what stays in the community? We believe that that knowledge and those skills and the tools, being able to use the tools to monitor their own progress, those are the resources that will never leave no matter what, right? So we make sure that they can do it on their own. And Domingo's a really important person. He's an important part of this. But if he left or something happened to Domingo, there would be promoters, there would be families, there would be expertise elsewhere so that the work doesn't depend on one person. That's the other danger, in development work, that there's one person or a company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important, Jen, is to just emphasize, the goal of this is seed money to get these programs started, with the goal being that they're self-sustaining programs. And, some are going to stick and some might not, and that's okay too. But yeah, this is, okay. So one other thing, food security. I want to talk a little bit about food security, right? You mentioned what happens if a global pandemic hits and things dry up, and that's obviously could be what's occurring right now, what we're experiencing. But one of the things that I want to emphasize is that's kind of that food security issue is an issue in these communities all the time, not just when there's a global pandemic occurring. And this is kind of the basis for the organization. And obviously things have changed. It's a little different right now. And this was one of the reasons why I thought it would be a great thing to discuss today. Because, as I said in that email I sent to you last week, it was, we're worried about whether or not there's going to be toilet paper on the shelf. And somebody came through and, cleaned out all the boxed mac and cheese and ramen, and we get all bent out of shape. How would you feel if you went to the store and A, you didn't have money to pay for anything, and B, there wasn't anything to purchase, even if you did have money, right? So these are real issues for people in many of these areas, coffee producing areas specifically in the world. So I just want to be clear with anyone that's listening and watching right now that this whole organization and our support for it has stemmed from this idea of food security at origin, and making sure that because of the nature of the crop cycle with coffee, there's a big influx of income during the harvest, and then there's nothing. So do you have anything that you want to kind of add, or
Well, yeah,
I know that wasn't.
No, it's everything, because people talk about having to pivot in this environment with the pandemic. I don't think we've pivoted at all. I mean, we're just focused on this issue, and now this issue is front and center because everybody's experiencing it. Imagine you're in a community and there is no store to go to for food. There's nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The roads are closed, the trucks aren't coming. And so what we've seen is we just produce our annual report for 2019, and that's when every year we take a look at what changed, what improved, what was the impact of the work. And like at SESMATch, I think we found that beekeepers improved their income, their net income, by something like 40% with their honey sales, and honey prices were pretty bad. More important, with the home garden programs, the community, we have 4 communities now working with home gardens and farmers markets. Those people now have food. They're growing food. They're getting through this because they can't leave. There are no roads. Nobody can get in and out now. They're locked down. Guatemala, Colombia, Nicaragua's pretty open. We have an organic farmers market with Sopexca that 33 women are running. And they have not only increased their income, but they're continuing to grow food. They're providing it for their neighbors. They can't travel. They live in little enclaves of, groups of houses. They're selling or sharing with their neighbors. So the people in our program have food. And our goal this year is to make sure we have enough money to make sure they have seeds, they have seedlings, they have everything they need to keep growing food throughout this cycle so that they can continue to provide for their communities. And so the value of their farms now is just tremendous because if you can grow food and get it locally, you can get through it, right?
Yeah. And like I was saying, it's, we're at a time right now where, I mean, I've seen the lines at the garden supply stores. I've tried buying some seeds for this year, and a lot of stuff's, it's slim pickings out there. But I think this is great, right? What this is doing is, anyone that knows me knows I'm a glass is half full kind of guy, right? People are doing this locally here in Olympia. I'm sure in Vermont as well. And, fortunately we have the opportunity to grow our own gardens, have a little bit of space to do that. But I hope it's something that, all of our customers and anyone in our communities will kind of keep in mind as they're, sticking their hands in the dirt and turning some soil and planting some seeds. And, the idea being kind of get more connected with your local communities. And it speaks to the work you guys are doing at local communities, ground level in coffee producing areas. And I know people are feeling some energy right now here in regards to that. And I would love to see that continue. So, I mentioned that when we first got involved with you guys, it was specifically with the Sesmac co-op in Mexico. We sold that coffee, and I've been looking for ways to kind of have ongoing support for the organization. But I just would like to let our customers know. So the way that we've decided to do that as a company is we're going to have ongoing employee contributions that are facilitated through basically our payroll. So regardless of whether or not we're selling a specific coffee that comes from one of the communities that you guys are working with, employees have the opportunity to contribute on their own. And that's happening right now. That's started here at Batdorf. So I can give you some specific numbers and details a little later. But one of the reasons, another reason, I guess I should say, why I wanted to have you on, hopefully we have a lot of our employees tuning in, maybe not live, but they can come and watch this and just kind of get a better understanding of what it is you guys do and how you do it. So that's an ongoing thing. My next goal perhaps then is to, the great thing about the coffee sales is it gives our customers an opportunity to participate and contribute to this. So in the event that we don't have a specific coffee, which we don't right now, perhaps I can have a little convo with the powers that be about ways that we could facilitate some customer contributions as well. I know Josh.
Usually I'm the one who commits you to doing things live in public. So I'm glad that you're taking the lead on this one.
Which is recorded and it's going to be recycled in perpetuity, right? Over and over.
Yeah. Well, this is, I know how this works. I've done some work with some, nonprofit volunteer organizations. And, it's that ongoing support that really does kind of sustain things, knowing that you got at least something coming in on a regular basis. So
I think that's true, Bob, what you've just said there is the key. I mean, it's great to be, from our perspective as a business, we have the ability to obviously highlight a coffee and help our customers understand how that can support farmers. But just like it's already been discussed, we have these cycles of liquidity comes into a community, then leaves a community because it's agricultural, right? What we're really working to do is find ways to make food and community more sustainable. Anybody who knows anything of the history of global north, global south knows that so many of those communities, as they move towards export crops, we're kind of disconnected from those traditional ways of multiple crops and food sustainability. So it's great that we get to partner with Food4Farmers in relearning. Just like you said, a lot of us here in the global north are relearning these very same things too, right? That, we have to take care of ourselves. And I think it's awesome that as an employee, I get to be part of the sustaining aspect of that. And then we can also even invite our customers to come in and do that too. I want to let everyone know that we have provided a link into our comments here. Can't hear Joshua. Well, everything I've just said you've heard, but nobody out here has, it looks like.
I heard you, Josh.
I heard you. You sounded great.
Well, so unfortunate for our viewers maybe, but there is a link, and you guys can probably reference that as well. So
Where is the link? Is it on the event?
In the comments.
In the comments, okay. Well, and I just want to say, having a garden is wonderful, but in Vermont, it snowed 2 days ago, so we're pretty limited. But in the communities where we work, people are planting, 3 rounds of vegetables a year, so they can have their gardens all year long, which is fantastic for them, and the food supply.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good stuff, Janice. It's good stuff. So this is why I wanted to make sure that we shared this with employees and customers alike. Like Josh said, if people can hear me, but they couldn't hear Josh, he's going to provide just a link with more information about Food4Farmers. And if anyone, as always, has any questions about what we're doing at Bettendorf and Bronson, in partnership with Food4Farmers, I would love to hear from you. And we can find the resources that we need to get those questions answered. And I don't know what, customer from our standpoint, customer contribution looks like. But I got some ideas. We'll figure it out. But in the meantime, rest assured that the company and our employees believe in what you guys are doing, and we're gonna do what we can to help support you and see us all through that vision. So.
Well, and I'm also available to get in touch through Facebook message or, contact us if you have any questions about our work. Anybody, feel free to get in touch. Happy to talk. Because we're here at home, available 24/7.
Yeah.
So hopefully I fixed a little bit of a mic issue here. People can maybe hear me a little bit better now. So you'll see up on the screen right now, I've have the Food4Farmers website in here. Specifically, if you go to the blog, you can read a little bit more about what they're sharing with us regarding COVID-19 impact on coffee farming families. It's a little bit of kind of the things that we've been talking about. And also, I want to make sure everyone knows, if you go to a link to visit Food4Farmers, there obviously is a way that you can contribute, right? And I have to say that. I have to make the pitch, right? Because again, getting back to that idea of, we can highlight coffees, and Bob's going to work on that so that we can connect you with farmers that way. But there are also ongoing and sustained needs that Food4Farmers is working directly with people to be agents of change in their own lives, and we can help them out that way by having sustained contributions. And again, I know people say this all the time, and I would say this to our staff or to anybody who's watching, right? any amount really does help. I mean, it's our collective amount. If it's $1 a month, if it's $1 a paycheck, those don't seem like large amounts to us maybe, but they really can compound, and they can really do a lot in the communities that Food for Farmers works in.
All right, well, thank you, Janice, for taking the time to come join us today. I appreciate it, as does all of us here at Batdorf, I'm sure. And yeah, I was going to ask. I know it's been there's been a little bit of a cold spell there in New England recently. We're kind of in prime spring gardening season here. I've been seeing a lot of mushrooms pop up. Morels are starting.
Really?
Yeah. I know Janice, for all our audience today, Janice is a diehard forager. And if you ever want to talk, search and eat with mushrooms or other items, you guys can you'll make sure that they are enlightened, Janice.
I have plenty of blackberries up here in my yard, Janice. Would you like to come help me forage those out of the way?
No thanks.
Yeah, come spend September in the Northwest. Well,
I've been there. There are pheasant backs here, Bob. Just found a bunch of those. And yep. Well, if we can ever leave again and travel, mushroom foraging, it's big. It says much. There's a couple of people that are cultivating mushrooms, and they also
I was gonna ask you about that, whether or not there's been any. I know there has been mushroom programs in the past in some coffee communities. If that was something that Food for Farmers had explored at all.
And those can be dried for export, right?
What?
Those can be dried for export.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but I learned that if you sun dry mushrooms, they have a lot of protein. There's a lot of vitamin D. So they use sun-dried mushrooms for people who like to eat mushrooms in Latin America. They're sun-drying them, screen-drying them for that vitamin D. So I know they're cultivating. I know there's chanterelles. I know there are several edibles. So personally, I would love to see us do that, but I can't commit because Marcela's in charge of our program. So can't force her. But Bob, maybe you can use your influence.
I'll see what I can do.
It would be great to do that together. Let's go when we can go back. Go to Sesmatch. We'll go foraging. We'll go foraging with Leticia and Lucas.
And I'll let you know that Andy Trindle on Facebook just commented. He says that blackberry picking every summer at Gig Harbor is one of his favorite childhood activities. So we'll get him involved with the blackberry things.
That's a woman, Andy.
Oh, Andy. She got it. A-N-D-I. Got it.
Sorry about that, Andy. I knew who you are.
Andy's community service. That's her blackberry picking in the.
All right, folks. Thanks so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Janice. And we'll be in touch shortly, okay?
All right. Maple syrup's on the way.
All right. Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Josh.
You bet, buddy. Take care. So, folks, thank you again for tuning in today. That was a great conversation about not just food security, but also how we all get to play a part, whether we're in the global north or the global south, in creating sustainable futures, right? So please hop onto the link that we provided and go look at Food for Farmers and their work. As Bob said, we've been able to highlight coffees from the communities they work with directly before. We'll be looking at that in the future, and we'll make sure everybody knows about that. We hope you're enjoying these Wednesday mornings. Bob's been working really hard to bring in folks to give us different topics to look at and think about. This is just one of them. So thank you. This is always, these things are always interconnected, right? We are a business. We source and sell coffee. You are our customers. And when you buy that coffee, a portion of what you're buying are these relationships that we invest our time and our hearts in. Obviously, as individuals in the company, we also donate to Food for Farmers, and we find ways to help customers do that as well. But also, the purchases you make, just by nature of buying the coffee that Bob is sourcing, that connects you in that way to those farmers as well, because we do spend time and treasure on this because it's important. You know, there is no coffee in our cafes without farmers living lives of dignity and sustainability in origin. And we all have to find better ways to grow those relationships. And a key part of that is connecting you, the folks who drink our coffee and who are our customers, growing our relationships directly down to the farms through this and other means. So thank you for every purchase that you make, every time you visit us. You're not just supporting Backdoor from Bronson's staff and employees and having a right livelihood. You're supporting all the way back down to the seed, right back down to the farmers. We really appreciate that, and we're glad that you work with us to honor them and the work they do. Stay tuned. Later today, Brendan is going to have Bob online at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 1 o'clock Pacific Time, and they'll be doing a live cupping of a very special geisha coffee. Now, I'm not going to say anything about geishas. I'll let Brendan and Bob do the talking, but that should be pretty fun. I know I want to tune in for that. So check back here at 1 o'clock Pacific, 4 o'clock Eastern Time to see that special cupping with Bob. And then we're going to be doing a deep dive into Whirling Dervish tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Those deep dives really just take a coffee, look at its flavor notes, and then talk about blends in this case, because it's a blend of coffee. And we'll do a brewing demo as well. And as we continue through the week, we hope that you stay engaged with us here. We really appreciate your time, your energy. Again, thanks to Janice with Food for Farmers today, and thank you for tuning in. Have a great day, and go make a cup of coffee.